maintained schools, and I believe that Debbie is presenting the report.
Yes, thanks, Susie. Obviously, I've submitted the report, so I don't intend to read all the way through it. I'll just generally take you through. So the key focus for our work has continued to be the development of those relationships with our LA maintained schools. I think it's really important to be able to offer that challenge and support. We need to have a really trusting relationship to do both aspects. So we've been working really hard to build that. And what we do now is that we have regular termly meetings where myself, Mike, Alison Critchley and Liz Robinson, so that's our education senior leadership team, one of us will visit each of our LA maintained schools, and we rotate that. So during the course of the year, they will have those termly visits from 3 out of the 4 of us. So therefore, we're covering different aspects of our work. In those conversations, we do talk around lots of different things, but actually it does enable them to be focused conversations as well. And I think that's really developing our relationship, and they seem to be really well appreciated by the head teachers of our LA maintained schools. We do keep notes of them and we put them on a tracker so that we do inform each other. And also if there are subsequent actions and follow up, we come back and follow those up straight away. We also have regular half-termly meetings with our LA maintained schools head teachers. The first one this year was actually held face-to-face, where we all got together. And it was a really good part workshop, part training, part meeting, whole day, where we could actually work together, because what we're working to establish is realistically, what are the expectations? What could and should our LA maintained schools head teacher expect of the local authority, and vice versa, what the local authority could and should expect of our head teachers and our LA maintained schools. And we're actually drawing that together in some sort of document, a bit like a memorandum of understanding, so it's really clear about those expectations. So effectively what we're beginning to do is work more like a multi-academy trust. We're not an academy trust, that's not on the cards, it's not on the table, but actually it's about centralising and working with a group of schools together, because there sometimes are economies of scales or things that we'd like to be consistent. So we're working much more in that way. So that's about that ongoing relationship. We're also working very hard with training and development. So I work particularly hard with our LA maintained schools to provide them with that sort of Ofsted updates, regular training, what a deep dive might look like, the latest things coming out from Ofsted, so they could be better prepared for those Ofsted inspections. And then on top of that, they can also request further training and development. As part of that as well, we've thought about our head teachers' workload and well-being. So we've actually offered some independent, professional qualified coaching for some of our head teachers. So we can do the curriculum bit, we can do the teaching and learning, but actually having that safe space for our head teachers to talk to somebody completely independent to help them come up with those sort of solutions is really important. So that's been taken up by at least 5 of our LA maintained schools head teachers, and sometimes where that number of sessions has finished, that, you know, under request, that has been continued because they found it really useful. And that's just not our new and less experienced head teachers. Some of our more experienced head teachers are benefiting from that as well. It's a difficult landscape and time out there, so as I say, having that safe space is really important for them. On that training day, on that co-production day that we did with our LA maintained head teachers back in September, there was a session on performance information, and our education information services came out in the afternoon, and just for our LA maintained schools gave them the opportunity to use a package that they buy into, to look at their own data, to remember how to interrogate it. Given over the last couple of years, it's been that changing and difficult time when we haven't been doing data in the same way. To go back to that, I think they found really useful. And it was another way that we can add in that layer of both support, but also the challenging conversations around, okay, so what's that data telling you? What's happening about it? This year as well, I've also ensured that there is a funded school improvement partner visit for each LA maintained school, and that can be somebody external, which I'm commissioning, because it enables myself and my colleague, which is the whole school improvement service team, to do our other work around the challenge and support. But it's also giving some external view of the school and work. And given that the money is often in their budget, they can commission more of that if they like that person, if it's really working well in an ongoing relationship. So it's adding to the depth and the capacity of what we can offer. Obviously, some schools need more support than others, and I do have a priority list. And, you know, we can conduct something like the thorough school review that we did for Mayfield with a new head teacher joining, a school that had an outcome 3 from a section 8. So in the report, I've put that there was a wraparound sort of thorough school review to give that new head teacher in that school a baseline to work with, and also to work out what was the ongoing support package moving forwards. Our LA maintained schools are carrying on with their peer review process that we started last year. So 17 out of 18 of them have signed up to this year, and I included in the appendix the sort of the evaluation, the annual reflection of it, and what we were moving forward to this year. So it was a little bit of the sharpening up of the so what aspect once we'd done those peer reviews. Our LA maintained schools also benefit from a website check, which our business support team carry out. So they go through what that actual document about what LA maintained schools should, what the statutory requirements publish on their website. They do that check. How many clicks does it take to find that information? Is it up to date? And again, we prioritise that because that's quite a large piece of work, but our schools benefit from that check. And if the business support team have any queries about they can't find it, or it might have another name, or they haven't located, it comes back through me, so I can double check it, because sometimes I'll understand the terminology more than our business support team would. But I think the schools find it helpful. Their governors do those checks as well, but to have that external view again of somebody else checking their website. We've also been carrying on what we've termed as our safeguarding sampling visits. So the visits can't possibly cover everything that is the whole of safeguarding, but it samples some of those processes and procedures that our LA maintained schools undertake. And again, that's been prioritised. So I've certainly been out to our 3 schools that are imminently expecting an Ofsted inspection. And again, just to ensure that everything that I can see on that visit, that is a spot check on that day, is tight. Does it need further embedding? Are there slight tweaks that we can make? And I think our schools are finding that, again, somebody else coming to them, seeing that to be a useful, helpful activity. And I've put a quote in the report as well. And I always write a report up afterwards so that they've got that in writing and it fleshes out the discussions from the day. So I've added in as well about reading. Whilst we were really pleased about our reading last year, in spite of the pandemic at Key Stage 2, we definitely can't afford to be complacent, and we are continuing our Destination Reader Network, our support, our work with Hackney Learning Trust, who are actually coming back down to Portsmouth to work with our Destination Reader network of schools. So we're definitely building on that reading. And last week, in fact, Spring Hill, which is our local English hub in Southampton, they had an event that was just for Portsmouth schools, where head teachers and teachers could go see some of their phonics, but also understand how they can access the funding and the support that the DFE have for schools to access in Portsmouth to improve our phonics. And 18 of our schools were represented there last week, which I was really pleased about. And I've also gone back to encourage other schools that couldn't go to see if they can go at a different time. And to think about our readers in secondary as well, we're also doing some work about those struggling and weaker readers in secondary. And my colleague in the School Improvement Service, Sarah Hilditch, we're looking at the accurate and diagnostic assessments for those struggling readers, so that we know what pathway they need to take. Is it purely about phonics and decoding? Is it about fluency? Is it about comprehension? Because unless you've diagnosed what the problem is, you can't put in the right intervention or the right support. So quite a lot of things going on, but I think the feedback coming back from our schools is that they do feel both challenged and supported.
Many thanks, Debbie. That's a really thorough report, and a lot of support going in, as you say. I've noticed that Frances has joined. So Frances is the is the independent chair for the Portsmouth Education Partnership, which is good timing. Welcome, Frances, because I was about to start off by saying just a few points that I wanted to pull out and reinforce. One is that I think we need to acknowledge what a tough time it is for schools generally at the moment, for all the reasons that everyone is struggling, but actually that extra pressure around continuing to focus on raising those standards whilst suffering all of the challenges around resourcing that other places are having, and also to remember, I think, particularly with, I suppose you could say it for a lot of professions, but actually with schools, the role they played in the pandemic, on the back of the austerity stuff, and then going into a cost of living crisis, they are at the front line again with no real meaningful break. So I just wanted to say that up front before I just highlight a couple of things on the LA maintained school, because I know that different academies will have different ways of supporting schools, and it's really good that as a local authority we come together and try and provide that kind of family of support for those and pull them together. I love the head teacher support, because gosh, it must be lonely in some ways, even though we're all in it together. It's actually quite a lonely path. I know the peer review. I mean, actually, to look at that engagement with the peer review, it's something to really be proud of, isn't it? Because, it's almost 100% of schools involved in that. The other things I wanted to just pull out, the website thing I think is a really good thing, that the amount of times I hear from schools that actually Ofsted, their first engagement with the school is through the website, and they've picked something up already, either that somebody's left or they haven't got something on there. And that is that sort of first chance to make that first impression, and it can be a minor thing. So I think it's really good to have different eyes on that. A really, in some ways, quite a simple thing to do, but actually how supportive of that. And the last thing I wanted to say was, having gone on a reading walk around Destination Reader, I know Debbie knows this, but I'm still wowed by the impact. And I've been a primary school teacher, so I was wowed by some of the strategies involved in that, and just how engaged young people were, because we know that when they're engaged, they're actually going to achieve. So not just focusing on our outcomes, but focusing on what we put in order to achieve those outcomes. So a lot there, and I know there is so much more, but thanks so much for the report. I think it's really, really positive news, and I know that schools are really appreciative of the work that we're doing. Are there any other comments or questions that anyone wants to? I can't see anything in the chat, which I understand is the mechanism, but if anyone wants to just wave as well, I think I can see most of you. No, I don't have any questions, obviously, because I've read it before, but I just wanted to draw out those comments, so thanks so much. So the recommendation is that members of the Education Advisory Board note the actions that have been taken to support and challenge LA maintained schools since the last report. So consider that duly done. And then we'll move on to the next item, which is a summary of the support and challenges. Sorry, no, it's not. It's item 5. It is juggling this. Ofsted school inspections for summer and autumn terms 2022.
And that's me again, Susie. I'm going to do that for Mike. So otherwise, we agreed to split things 2 and 2.
Okay, so Debbie, I'll hand back over to you. We've all read the report, I expect, but if you want to pull out some highlights, that would be great. Thank you.
Of course. So by way of introduction, we went back to explaining that from September, the terminology has changed and the handbooks had changed themselves, not so much the content, but the layout of them. And as I say, that language. So your section 5 full inspections are now known as graded inspections, because every area of the framework is actually graded. and your Section 8 inspections are now known as ungraded. So they're the ones that are for good and outstanding